Hello and welcome to this session number 6, quiz number 6 with me, Adrian Garratt. I am a resident musician, a CW Plus at Chelsea and Westminster and West Middlesex Hospitals. Hopefully you are viewing this on something that you expect to find me. That could be a Hospidia screen in the hospital. It could be on a screen somewhere at home, possibly on the YouTube medium. So this is part of the Virtual Connections, which is the Arts for All programme presented to you by CW Plus, the hospital charity, to continue their work providing art to the hospitals in these strange times, not in the hospitals, but from people's homes. So welcome to my home. Hello. My name's Adrian Garratt, yes, as I say, and I'm presenting these quizzes. These musical quizzes featuring me playing this piece of old wood. So a bit of music, some questions to keep you going along the way. So prepare yourself now. If you would like to write down answers, then get yourself a pen or a pencil, something to write on, or you can do it on a device, obviously. You can write them on your phone or your tablet, or you can do it in your head. If writing is difficult at the moment, then just jot down the answers mentally and prepare for the answers to be given to you by me halfway through and at the end of the quiz. So those of you who joined us before, there are some rollover questions from previous weeks, and there is also a theme. So think out, see what you can come up with. What is the theme? We're linking all the pieces of music I'm going to play for you today. There is a theme. So rollover questions from last week. I've got my notes over here. You can't see them, but I can. Last week we had a theme, which I'm not going to divulge because you might be watching this for the first time. You might want to go back and watch last week's episode, last week's quiz, and see if you can work out a theme for yourself. But I can tell you there are a couple of questions that emerged from the music that I played last week. It's another hot day today, ladies and gentlemen. It's another hot day. Yeah, I've told you who I am. Good. I've told you who I normally am. Good. Elderly wards at Chelsea and Westminster. Perhaps you're on one now. Perhaps you're on Nell Gwyn. Perhaps you're on Lord Wigram. Perhaps you're on Rainsford Molam. Perhaps you're on Edgar Horn. Perhaps you're watching on a Hospidia screen next to your bed. If so, welcome. I hope your stay there is brief. Yeah, do get in touch as well. Get in touch, ladies and gentlemen. There is an email address. Here it is. arts@cwplus.org.uk. arts@cwplus.org.uk. Let us know your feedback. Let us know how you're getting on. Let us know anything. Let us know what you've got in front of you to eat. Is it beans on toast? Is it a jacket potato? Is it some dal with some vindaloo? Who knows? Let us know. And what you're drinking as well. What am I drinking? It's fairly obvious. It's not gin. Very nice. Right, so rollover questions from last time. Rollover questions. We had two. As part of last week's programme, we had a song called Send in the Clowns from Sondheim's musical, A Little Night Music, written I think in 1973, if my memory serves me correctly. Of course, I wasn't around then, or was I? So he wrote another musical a bit later on, 1979, about a barber. And my rollover question number 1 was, what is the name of this barber? And the answer is Sweeney Todd. Sweeney Todd is the name of that barber. It's a bit of a gory tale from a play written by someone based on I think it was the Penny Dreadfuls. I think it was in Dickens' time. There was a story which came out which people could read in sort of serials. So like they get a little magazine every week, and the story would be, and it was a gripping story, and they were all captivated by it. And I think there was a play of it even before the story finished. Anyway, somebody wrote a play in I think the 70s or the late 60s, which Sondheim read or saw in London, possibly. I'm making it up. And he wrote a musical, which is a massive hit, and it's brilliant. Anyway, Sweeney Todd is the name of the barber. And then the other question was, we had this one. Which we all know is a theme to Postman Pat. And my question was, the series was originally produced in 1981. It was directed by Ivor Wood. Now, Ivor Wood directed another show, originally in French, featuring a couple of characters, Zebedee and Dougal. And my question was, what is the name of that show? Possibly too easy for you intelligent people, you knowledgeable people, is of course The Magic Roundabout. The Magic Roundabout, directed by Ivor Wood, before 1981's Postman Pat. Anyway, so cracking on with this week's selection of music, and I'm going to start with this rather beautiful song, one of my favourites. Oh, what a song. On the Street Where You Live. Yeah, welcome to my house on my street. So my first question number one this week, question number one is, which 1956 Broadway show is that song taken from? So what is the name of the show that song is taken from? There you go, question number one. Question number two, the musical, because it is a musical, is based on a George Bernard Shaw play from 1913. What is the name of that play? What's the name of the play written by George Bernard Shaw that the musical that song came from is based on? So the song, On the Street Where You Live, is from a musical, 1956 musical, written by, I think Lerner and Lowe, I think. Anyway, it's based on a play, George Bernard Shaw. What's the name of the play? Number three, there was a film of that play, of that musical. 1964, film version of the musical, featuring, of course, Eliza Doolittle in the main role. And she sings lots of songs, of course. And they were actually sung by a lady called Marnie Nixon. Marnie Nixon sang the songs that you hear when you watch the 1964 film. Which famous actress was Marnie Nixon dubbing for? All right, got that? Question number three. All right, so Marnie Nixon sang the songs. Which actress was she dubbing for in the 1964 film? And now, another tune, ladies and gentlemen. Ah, one of my favourites. The Girl from Ipanema. So my first question about that song, question number 4, is who wrote the music to that song? Who wrote the music? Back in the 60s sometime, can't remember when it was, 1962 possibly, it's before my time of course. So who wrote the music to that song is question number 4. Question number 5, Ipanema. Ipanema is a fashionable seaside area of which Brazilian city? Which Brazilian city, host to the 2016 Summer Olympics? Which Brazilian city, which hosted the Summer Olympics in 2016, the one after London, is Ipanema a suburb of? A seaside suburb. There you go. That's question number 5. Perhaps you've been there. Tell us. Let us know on this email address, arts@cwplus.org.uk. Is it that nice? Is Ipanema actually as nice as it sounds in that wonderful song? Or is it a bit of a dump? Who knows? Let us know. Have you been there? God, quite like to go there now. Right, so that's about Ipanema. And question number 6. Question number 6. It's believed to be the second most recorded song in history. Believed to be the second most recorded song. My question is, which English pop song is the first most recorded song? Which English pop song is the most recorded song in history? Perhaps we'll have a little bit of that later on. Who knows? So that's question 6 there. Question 6. And now for piece number 3. That's not it. That's me messing about. Stuff like that. Now, what key am I going to do it in? I think I'm going to do it in, I don't know what, I can't even work out what key it's in. I'm going to start on a D. There it is, open D. Sing along if you know the words. There we go, Jerusalem there. Well, known as Jerusalem now. Yeah, so that's a popular hymn, of course. Originally a poem. It was originally a poem by a very famous poet. His name is William. And my question is this. Question number 7. Was it William Shakespeare or was it William Blake? Which one of them? Which one of the old William or William? Blake or Bard, as they say in many years ago. Great show on radio, which I'm sure you've heard, which is Mark and Lard on Radio 1 and on Radio 2. They used to do a great quiz called Bard or Blake. And they used to read out a bit of poetry and then the contestant had to guess whether it was Shakespeare or Blake. So there you go. So a similar thing here, really. So who wrote the poem that the hymn takes its lyrics from? William Shakespeare, William Blake. Now, here's the thing. The poem tells of a story, apocryphal story, that Jesus travelled to what is now England when he was a young man. And my question is this: in the story where Jesus came to England, he visited apparently the home of a now popular music festival. So my question is, where did he go? Which now famous popular music festival site did he visit? Was it A, Glastonbury, B, Cambridge, or C, the Isle of Wight? Was it A, Glastonbury? Did Jesus go to A, Glastonbury? Did Jesus go to B, Cambridge? Or did Jesus go to C, the Isle of Wight? I mean, he might have been all three, but reputedly went to one of those places. So that's question number 8. And then question number 9. Here's a good one. Guess the answer to this one. The famous tune was written in 1916 by Hubert Parry. Hubert Parry, quite a well-known composer, wrote a lot of hymns. Some people thought he was great, a great composer. Other people, less so. But he wrote a lot of hymn tunes, Hubert Parry. As well as composing, he was also head of composition at the Royal College of Music, where he taught lots of people, some of whom went on to achieve great things and become quite famous. So my question is, he taught a young composer who went on to write the Planet Suite. What was his name? So Hubert Parry, composer of the theme or the music to Jerusalem in 1916, also taught composition at the Royal College of Music in London, and he taught quite a few people who went on to become very successful composers, one of whom composed the Planet Suite. What was his name? All right, and now the last piece in this section of the quiz is this one. If you've got some bagpipes at home, join in now. In the wrong key, really. It should be in B flat major for bagpipes. There we go. So that was the Mull of Kintyre, written by Paul McCartney. I think he wrote it with one other person. So my first question is question 10. Question 10 of piece number 4, and section number 1 of quiz number 6. Here with me. Question 10 is what's the name of the band that released it? So Paul McCartney wrote it with someone else. Can't remember what his name was. What's the name of the band? What is the name of the band that released that song back in 19 whatever it was? Next question. Next question is so it was Christmas number 1. Christmas number 1 in what year? In the UK. Christmas number 1 in what year in the UK? Second question. I'll give you a clue. It's not 1953. Not very helpful clue there. So which year was it Christmas number 1? And question number 12. It was the UK's, incredibly, the UK's best-selling single for a little while, with over 2 million sales, 2.09 million sales. It was the UK's best-selling single. Sold more singles than any Beatles song. There you go. So for a little while, until in 1984, it was overtaken. It was overtaken in 1984 by an even better selling single, the peak of the single sales in the UK. What was that single? Very famous single, obviously. What was the name of the song that outsold it in 1984? Several years later. Can't tell you how many years later, because that will give away the answer to question number 11. All right, and now that is the end of the questions in part one. So now it's time for the answers. Get in touch if you get them all right. Now, it's a fairly simple point system. You can award yourself as many points as you'd like. So perhaps you'd like to go for the simple 1 point per answer. Perhaps you're feeling a bit sort of generous to yourself and you want to go for 2 points, even 10 points per answer. You could do 7 points per answer if you want some maths, because then it'd be more difficult to work out how many points you've scored, or even 29 points per answer. Up to you. Anyway, so question number one. Question number one, oh, we had this one, didn't we? On the Street Where You Live. So On the Street Where You Live is from which 1956 Broadway musical? And the answer is My Fair Lady. My Fair Lady. So other great songs. Oh, it's great. So many good songs. From the zenith, the halcyon days of the musical there, 1950s. So many good stuff. So My Fair Lady, Lerner and Lowe. Oh, I just thought of another quiz question I was going to do. I've got a couple of rollover questions, but I might do sneaky 3 rollover questions. So I've just thought of the other one. I think of stuff and then I forget. Question number 2 is the musical is based on a George Bernard Shaw stage play from 1913. And I ask you, what was the name of that George Bernard Shaw stage play? And the answer is Pygmalion. All right. So Pygmalion is the name of the George Bernard Shaw stage play from 1913, on which that is based. And in the film version of the musical, in 1964, Eliza Doolittle's songs were sung by Marnie Nixon, the lesser-known Marnie Nixon, because she was dubbing. She was dubbing for the actress who played Eliza Doolittle in the film, whose name was, and the answer is Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn. I think there is a tiny bit of one of her tracks that is actually her singing, but only a bit of one song. All the others were sung by Marnie Nixon. I think there was another question about, did we have another question about Audrey Hepburn in a previous week, possibly? It might come up in a future week. I'm not sure whether we did that song, actually. Yeah, this might be another question. Strokey beard. Strokey beard. All right, so, and then we went on to this one. The famous Girl from Ipanema. Written by, question number 4, was who wrote the music? It was Antonio Carlos Jobim. Antonio Carlos Jobim. And in the 60s sometime. Not sure when. And then question 5, Ipanema is a seaside suburb of which Brazilian city? Which Brazilian city is Ipanema a seaside suburb of? Host to the 2016 Summer Olympics. And the answer is Rio de Janeiro. Rio de Janeiro is home to Ipanema, the beaches of Ipanema, where people wander around, you know, looking beautiful. And question number 6. Question number 6 is, it is believed to be the second most recorded song in history. So I've just added to the recordings of it, this solo violin recital. So believed to be the second most recorded song in history. Which English pop song is the most recorded song in history? It's this one, apparently. Did we have that last week? We might have done. The week before, possibly, we might have had it. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Yesterday by the Beatles, of course. which apparently was the only thing that, well, Paul McCartney said he was trying to think of things that go with the little bit of tune, da da da, and scrambled eggs was one of them. Scrambled eggs, there you go. More trivia. Anyway, so that was question number 6. So Yesterday is the most recorded song in history, apparently. And then we had this one. That one, bit of Jerusalem. And I asked you, it is based, or the lyrics are a poem written by which famous William? The famous William, is it William Shakespeare or is it William Blake? And the answer is William Blake. That's right. It's a bit of Blake. Taken from a very long poem, I think. That was sort of the introduction bit. Anyway, so the lyrics are taken from a Blake poem. And the poem tells the story of Jesus, who apparently travelled to what is now England in his early adulthood. And he visited the site of a now very famous music festival. So, did Jesus visit A, Glastonbury, B, Cambridge, or C, the Isle of Wight? And the answer is, apparently, Jesus went to Glastonbury. So, Jesus at Glastonbury on the main stage. So, Glastonbury is the answer to number 8. And then question number 9, it was written, the tune was written by Hubert Parry in 1916. And as well as composing, he also taught composition and I think was then head of music at the Royal College of Music in London. And while he was there, he taught quite a few people who went on to be very, very famous. And one of whom wrote the Planets Suite. And my question was, what is his name? What is the name of the person who wrote the Planet Suite? And the answer is Gustav Holst. Gustav Holst wrote all those famous tunes. Anybody recognise that? That's the beginning. That's the beginning of planets. Bit of Mars. So that was Holst, and then we had this one. I forgot how it goes. Oh yeah. Written by Paul McCartney with his mate, his American friend, I think, who was in his band at the time, not the Beatles. What was the name of the band that released that song in 19... Oh, that's next question. The name of the band was Wings. So it's Paul McCartney's band, of course. Wings wrote that and released it, and they wrote it in... Well, they released it in which year? So it was Christmas number 1. It's Christmas number 1 in which year? The year was 1977. Woo! Well done for getting that right. All of those of you did. Yeah, big tick. Let us know. How are you doing? How many points have you got so far? How many points are you awarding yourself for every question you get right? Are you awarding yourself points for even questions you get wrong because you're feeling like you need points? No prizes, I'm afraid. No prizes. So 1977 was the Christmas number 1, and it was the UK's best-selling single of all time up to that point, with over 2.09 million sales. But it got beaten. 7 years later, it got beaten by the Christmas number 1 in 1984, which was which song? And the answer is, of course, Do They Know It's Christmas? Charity single, they see. Apparently, to this day, the Mull of Kintyre is still the best-selling non-charity single. All right. There you go. There's a trivia fact for you. So all the other things that have sold more than that have been charity singles. Even Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, released twice. It was re-released in 1991, and the complete sales are more than the Mull of Kintyre. But the second time, all the profits went to charity. So there you go. So now it's time for the intermission. And a piece of my choosing about which there are no questions at all. So you can just sit and listen to this one, relax. I'm not going to ask you anything. And I'm going to play a piece. I haven't even decided what it's going to be yet. What's it going to be? Let's have a sort of upbeat one, because it's been a little bit slow, hasn't it, today? So we're going to do an upbeat classical one. I don't think there's any classical music in today. So we're going to do this very famous piece by Mozart, which I don't think we've had yet. Oh, we had it. So I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do this one. So that was the third movement of Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik Serenade. So the first bit is this bit, which I think we had a couple of weeks ago, when the theme was, not going to give it away. So that was the third movement of Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik, the 525th piece that he wrote. Didn't you do well? And now, after the intermission, end of intermission, oh, we didn't do our answers jingle either. It's time for part 2 of the quiz. Part 2 of the quiz, everyone. And now cracking on with, yeah, the next piece I'm going to play for you is this one. Very patriotic one. Which goes like this. There we go, Royal Britannia. So used annually, Royal Britannia, in a famous concert at the Royal Albert Hall. I think we had this question before, about Sailor's Hornpipe. So it's used annually in a famous concert in the Albert Hall. Hopefully that will happen this year, because I hear that there are attempts to do this concert season this year in all these strange times. What's the concert called? What is the concert called? Question number 13, used annually in a famous concert in the Albert Hall in London every year in September. What's the concert called? Question 14, Arthur Sullivan. So it was written a long time ago, this tune, yeah, it was a sort of massive hit around the time of the Empire, the British Empire. And then in the, I think, very early 20th century, Arthur Sullivan, of Gilbert and Sullivan fame, he added a chorus of Royal Britannia to the end of one of his operas. My question is this, which one was it? So was it A, The Pirates of Penzance? Was it B, HMS Pinafore? Or C, The Mikado? So Arthur Sullivan, Gilbert Sullivan, added a chorus of Royal Britannia to the end of one of his operas. Was it A, The Pirates of Penzance, B, HMS Pinafore, or C, The Mikado? That's question number 14. And question number 15, which German composer, so quite a few composers, because it's been around for so long, quite a few famous composers like Beethoven and Handel, all use this tune in various pieces that they wrote. Which seems quite strange now, but just the bow tie there we go. So yeah, question number 15, which German composer, famous for extremely long operas, wrote a concert overture based on this tune in 1837. Which German composer wrote a concert overture based on this tune? Strange. In 1837. Which German composer, famous for long operas? Should do some of his music actually. So that's piece number 5. And now it's time for piece number 6. Possibly a lesser known piece. We'll see. Additional questions. So there you go. How many of you have heard that before? Many, I'm sure. Many, I'm sure. So that is the national anthem of which country? That's not even a question. I'm just asking you anyway. Which country is that the national anthem to? Of? Well, South Africa is the answer. It's the national anthem of South Africa. So question 16, that's not even a question. Like, give yourself a bonus question for that. Bonus point. The tune was adopted for the national anthem of the South African country. In which year after the collapse of apartheid? So which year? So it wasn't the national anthem until this year, at the end of apartheid. Which year was it adopted as the national anthem of South Africa? Yeah, I was reading about it before I did this, and it was a hymn tune written by I think someone in South Africa in about 100 years ago, sort of late 19th century, like 1897 or something. Who wrote the lyrics and the music. Very beautiful tune, I think. Very beautiful tune. The lyrics in the national anthem are taken from 5 of South Africa's official languages. And they are Xhosa, Zulu, Sesotho, Afrikaans and English. So I think 5 verses, all in different language, or there's just chunks from different languages. So Xhosa, Zulu, Sesotho, Afrikaans and English. My question is this: how many official languages are there in South Africa? How many official languages are there in South Africa? So 5 of them feature in the lyrics to the South African national anthem, and there are a few more. How many more? How many are there in total? And question 18, third question about the South African national anthem. In 1995, the South African team of which sport famously learned all the words to the anthem? Which is obviously tricky because there's 5 different languages, and was a bit of a political statement as well, because it was, apartheid had not yet collapsed. So 1995, the South African team of which sport famously learned all the words to the national anthem, as documented in a film which I've forgotten the name of. Anyway, that's question 18. All right, and now moving on to this. A little bit different. So that is the Scarborough Fair. Very old English traditional ballad. My first question, question number 19. To which century has this ballad been dated? So how far back in history have records been found of that ballad? Is it A, the 14th century, B, the 16th century, or C, the relatively recent 17th century? 14th century, 16th century, or 17th century? How far back does Scarborough Fair go? Right, question number 20. So Simon and Garfunkel recorded a version in 1966, which featured on the soundtrack to which 1968 film? So I think everyone knows this song now because of that version. So Simon and Garfunkel recorded it in 1966 on their album The album's the fourth. Is it Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme or something? I think it's the name of the album. Anyway, it's on there, and then it was used. They scored the soundtrack to the entire film, I think. A 1968 film, very famous film. What is the name of the 1968 film featuring their version of Scarborough Fair and a load of other songs by them as well? And question number 21. So Paul McCartney and Simon Garfunkel, they did that. Not Paul McCartney, sorry, Paul Simon, Simon Garfunkel. Art Garfunkel. God, what am I talking about? Apparently Paul Simon learnt that song from a famous English folk singer in London in 1965. So came over to London, met this chap, learnt that song. So my question is, what is the name of that famous English folk singer who he apparently learnt the song from? Presumably it's a sort of derivation of them doing that album. So we have him to thank. So what's the name of the famous English folk singer that Paul Simon learnt that song from? Learnt Scarborough Fair from in London in 1965. Picture it now. Were they in a bar? Were they in a house? Were they in a park with their guitars? Who knows? So that's the Scarborough Fair. And one more song for you this week. One more song, and it is this one. Beautiful song called What'll I Do? And that was written by Irving Berlin a long time ago. So my question is, what decade did Irving Berlin write that song in? What decade? 19 what? And you get an extra bonus point, or however many you'd like, if you can tell me which year. So which decade did Irving Berlin write that song in? And extra points for which year he wrote it in. That's question number 22. Question number 23. It was used in a 1974 film. Used in a 1974 film starring Robert Redford and Mia Farrow. Based on a book by F. Scott Fitzgerald. It's going to give it a clue. It's going to give you away. So it's 1974 film starring Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, based on F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel. What was the name of that film? Sorry, bumped the phone there, so I went up and down, up and down. So that's question number 23. And question number 24, coming up to date a bit more. It was also used, as I'm sure you know, as a theme to a British sitcom. What's the name of the British sitcom? Should I give you a clue? I don't think you need a clue. I don't think you need a clue. So it was used as a theme tune to a British sitcom. It was, I think it was sung by the two main lead performers, actors in that sitcom. I'm not going to give you a clue. I'm not going to give you a clue. I'd written down a clue. I thought, shall I give it to them? I thought, no, you don't need a clue. You're too good. You know too much. So that is the last question. Woo! And now it's answers part 2. Answers part 2. We started with that one. Very patriotic. Rule Britannia. And my questions were, used every year in a famous concert in London in the Albert Hall. What's the name of the concert? The concert is called The Last Night of the Proms. Last Night of the Proms, which hopefully will go ahead this year. So that's question number 13. Question number 14, Arthur Sullivan of Gilbert and Sullivan fame added a chorus of Rule Britannia to the finale of which of his operas? Was it A, Pirates of Penzance? Was it B, HMS Pinafore? Or was it C, The Mikado? And the answer was B, HMS Pinafore. I think it was for some royal event. I can't remember what it was. Question number 15, unlikely question. Which German composer, famous for writing very long operas, wrote a concert overture based on this tune in 1837? And the answer is Wagner. That's right, Wagner wrote a concert overture based on that tune. Never heard it. Check it out. There you go. And then we have this one. The South African national anthem. Nkosi Sikeleli Africa, I think, is the first line. I think. Adopted in which year as the national anthem of South Africa after apartheid? And the answer is 1997. 1997, I think for about 40 years before that, or at least 40 years, there was a different national anthem. So adopted in 1997. The lyrics to the national anthem of South Africa, as is now, are taken from 5 of the country's official languages, and they are Xhosa, Zulu, Sesotho, Afrikaans and English. And I asked, how many official languages are there in South Africa? How many official languages are there in total? And the answer is 11. 11 official languages in South Africa. And then in 1995, the South African team of which sport famously learned all the words in all 5 languages to the national anthem? And the sport is rugby. The Springboks did that in 1995, as featured in the film. Can't remember what it's called. All about Nelson Mandela. Is it just called Mandela? Probably is. And then we had this one. My memory. Sometimes I just forget. Oh yeah. Which was not written by Simon and Garfunkel. It's a very, very old English ballad dating back to which century? Is it A, the 14th century, B, the 16th century, or C, the 17th century? And the answer is C, the 17th century. There you go. So it's pretty old. So Simon and Garfunkel recorded a very famous version in 1966, which was then used in a very famous film in 1968, which they scored all the music to. What is the name of that film? The name of that film is The Graduate, of course. 1968 film, The Graduate. And my last question was, so Paul Simon apparently learned it from an English folk singer in London in 1965. What is the name of that folk singer that he learnt the tune from? Very famous folk singer. And his name is Martin Carvey. Martin Carvey, who also recorded a great version on his album, I think, well, I can't remember when it was, in the 60s sometime. Yeah, very beautiful. So Martin Carvey apparently taught Paul Simon the tune, or, you know, introduced him to the tune in 1965. And then we had this one. What'll I Do by Irving Berlin, which is extremely popular way back when. In my work in Chelsea and Westminster, so I play on the elderly wards. Hello, if you are on the elderly wards. That song seems to be better known than pretty much any other song that I could play. Almost anyone of a certain age knows that song. It must have been a huge hit. So he wrote it in the which decade? Which decade did Irving Berlin write that song? And the answer is 1920s. Extra points for knowing 1923. 1923 he wrote that song. It was used in a 1974 film starring Robert Redford and Mia Farrow, based on F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel of the same name. And the film was called The Great Gatsby. The Great Gatsby. And it was also used as the theme tune to a very popular British sitcom, which ran through the, I think, 80s and 90s. Well, actually, no, much more recently than that. I think they did reruns up to very recently. And the name of that sitcom, no clues, is Birds of a Feather. And the song was sung by Pauline Quirk and Linda Robson, I think. So that is it. That concludes the questions for this week. So only, well, not quite. We have 2 questions left, 3 questions left. What's the theme? What's the theme this week? Linking all this music on the street where you live. The Girl from Ipanema, Jerusalem, The Mull of Kintyre, Rule Britannia, South African National Anthem, Scarborough Fair, and What'll I Do by Irving Berlin. And they are all linked by places. Rule Britannia is a little bit, you know, a little bit iffy. Rule Britannia, well, you know. Yeah, Ipanema, Jerusalem, Roller Berlin, all places. Well done for getting that right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You did well. Give yourselves extra points for getting that. And 2 rollover questions for next week. The first one is, the girl from Ipanema, here's a random fact, was ranked in 2009 by the Brazilian edition of Rolling Stone magazine as in the 100 greatest Brazilian songs. My question is, what was its ranking in the 100 greatest Brazilian songs? Was it ranked by the Brazilian edition of Rolling Stone as #1 Brazilian song of all time? Or was it ranked as number 11 of all time? Or was it ranked as C, the 27th best Brazilian song of all time? So that is my first rollover question. Was it ranked as #1, B, number 11, C, number 27? And question 2. Martin Carney, who taught Paul Simon the Scarborough Fair, has a daughter twice nominated for the Mercury Music Prize, ladies and gentlemen. Twice nominated. Hasn't won it yet, but twice nominated. She famously plays the violin and sings at the same time, a bit like this. I'm not going to do it because she's great. It's really hard to play the violin and sing at the same time, because you have to tune 2 things with your ear at the same time. You have to tune what you're playing, and you also have to tune what you're singing. And it's really hard, really hard. That's why people who sing and play often play the piano or the guitar, which you don't really have to tune, because you've got frets and notes laid out for you. So loads of people can do that. But playing a string instrument and singing as well, very difficult. So that's what she does. She's brilliant. And her name is... That's my rollover question number 2. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here in my house for quiz number 6. A theme being places. It's the places theme quiz, number 6. Hopefully I will see some of you again next week, either in your house, or if you are having a longer than a week stay in hospital, then might see you in hospital then. But stay well. Have a safe and pleasant week. My name is Adrian Garratt, bringing you this from the Virtual Connections, the online version of the Arts for All programme by CW+, the hospital charity. Get in touch. Let us know how you're feeling, what you're thinking, whether you're enjoying this, what we want more of, what you want less of. arts@cwplus.org.uk. That's it from me. Au revoir for now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.